Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the episode of Real Talk Podcast here at the Academy Live Studio. Today, Kaz, how are you?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am doing very well. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah.
How was your weekend?
My weekend.
Mr. Burger Man.
The weekend was good. We were at ICB this weekend.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Previous weekend, we were selling burgers for Slugs Creek Mosque and Al Tazkirah Institute.
I was very disappointed though. You know why I was disappointed? I rocked up at 4 o'clock and there was nothing left.
What do you expect? We had 250 burgers there.
I saw that
huge
queue. That
crowd.
was crazy. MashaAllah.
Huge crowd. We had a queue of about 15 meters long.
Subhanallah.
And I was on the barbecue, and every time I turned around, I was absolutely shocked and also really, really scared that there was going to be so many hungry, angry people waiting for burgers.
I think it was the fact that like the exposure of the burgers now as well. You guys have done good advertising.
Alhamdulillah.
Some people have already tried your burgers.
Yeah.
And they've come to the event for your burgers. Yeah. So I kept using the words 350. You guys kept using the words 250. If I say 350, I would have gotten a burger on the day. I didn't. But I did come late, so it's my fault.
No, you did come late, and you went straight to the Turkish den. But anyway, but today also welcome back, Haji Hassan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
MashaAllah. Haji Hassan also had a bumper weekend. I think Haji Hassan needs to give us an update of his weekend as well.
We didn't think you were going to make it today, actually, to be honest.
Well, we were partying in Sydney all weekend.
I believe so. I could see on the videos you were partying hard.
Yeah. No, we had a small fundraiser for the Gold Coast Mosque down there. And
MashaAllah.
Got some support, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah.
And very tiring. And then 3-hour delay on Virgin Airlines. So don't fly Virgin Airlines, you know.
And they're all the same, Haji. Trust me, it's all the same. I've had, I can go into all the other airlines as well. I've got to the airport and I've had a flight cancelled and it sucks.
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky over the years, but, it was really... really peed off.
But tell us about the fundraiser. Tell us, give us some update. How did it go and how did you guys go?
We could have done better, but mashallah, we raised about 80 to 100,000.
Alhamdulillah.
And it all goes towards the youth centre.
Yeah.
So we're trying to finish the building off, mashallah.
I think everyone's looking
But Sydney people
out.
are good, mashallah. They come out, when required. But being an out-of-town organisation, it's always difficult to raise money in another city.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't think you're out of town, mate. You belong to all of Australia.
No, I've got a good following, alhamdulillah. But mashallah, it was good. And we give all thanks to Sheikh Shadi for supporting us too, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. But no, that leads us to our next guest.
Yep.
We are very, very, very happy to have you here today.
Jazakallah, brother. Pleasure is mine. Jazakallah khair for having me.
Kaz?
Yeah, no, I'm going to go into my weird story. So Adrian and I, we normally have a bit of a chat going, and over the weekend.
I guess a little preparation chat.
We won't call it preparation. We'll call it maybe just a bit of what do you think of this, or what do you think of this question, or where can we go with this? And so I'm standing in the queue at Kmart, and I'm getting these questions coming back and forth, and I look up, and lo and behold, guess who's standing in the queue? Ali Kadri himself.
Oh, so you're talking about me when you saw me yesterday. Subhanallah.
Astaghfirullah.
And subhanallah, I want to talk about the purchase that he made because he bought an air fryer.
Yes, I did too. So I bought an air fryer,
yeah. But it was weird though because I was looking at him standing, purchasing the thing. And I'm thinking, subhanallah, Ali's lost so much weight. And I think this is all part and parcel of getting the air fryer now, or give us the mechanics behind it.
Well, it's a long story. I mean, I think overall I've lost about 30 kilos. So a fair bit of weight in about 7-8 months. But look, it took a lot of hard work and discipline.
Yeah.
Mainly in the food. And as a lot of people say when they go through this journey that 90% of it is food.
Yeah.
And I think it is. 90% of it is food.
Subhanallah.
And it's kind of hard, because in our cultures, we celebrate with food.
Yes.
So, food is a huge celebration for us. We eat a lot and we eat really nice food, nice cuisines from around the world.
100%.
And it's always rich cuisine, so.
Yeah.
But alhamdulillah, it took discipline and I think it's also a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
So, it has to become part of your life.
Yeah.
You can't be just doing it for a few months and then giving it up. And, and obviously there's a lot of knowledge out there.
Yeah.
And one thing I'd like to say is that, if you want to stay fit, Australia is the heaven, man. The kind of food you get here, the amount of, I've traveled a fair bit over the last 2 months. And we have yogurt here, which is like 15 grams of protein under 100 calories.
Yeah.
And you don't get that kind of stuff anywhere in the world. I eat this protein bread, which basically is better than a piece of meat when it comes to
wow.
protein intake.
Yeah.
5 gram carbs, 23 gram protein.
What's the brand called?
Brand, are we allowed to do marketing?
If it's good, because
Marketing? Did you say marketing?
It's called Herman Brot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying, like me, I've over the last couple of weeks,
Yeah.
I've tried to kind of, get back into the active, healthy lifestyle. Because I've felt that the last couple of years, I've really
I always
not
give him a hard
cared about
time.
what I've eaten.
I always give him a hard time because when it comes to lunchtime, all I hear is, "Can I get a kebab today?" So I don't know how he's gonna get there.
Hey, look,
He's gonna
in
keep putting
moderation,
kebabs.
everything's
Yeah.
fine. I mean,
Yeah.
if you can keep it in moderation,
Yeah,
it's
my
fine.
wife also works here as well, so that's why I'm always asking, "Can I get a kebab today?" So yeah.
Subhanallah. And that was coupled with exercise of some sort, or
Yeah,
what
exercise,
kind
fair
of
bit
training?
of mostly resistance training.
Ah,
So
subhanallah.
yeah, resistance because when you do lose your weight, you tend to lose fat and muscle because
Yes.
when people talk about weight loss, what they're necessarily talking about is fat loss,
Yeah.
not weight loss.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
having muscle is a good thing.
Yeah.
So invariably you're going to lose muscle if you're going to go on a diet or exercise and you're going to be in calorie deficit.
Yeah.
So you have to retain as much as possible during that period of time, and the best way to do that is resistance training. It also helps with bone strength,
Oh,
and your
subhanallah.
bone density. So did a fair bit of resistance training, quite intense. I have a very strict routine on training.
So Ali, okay, that's Ali Kadri in 2019.
Yep.
So let's talk about Ali Kadri growing up.
Before we get
You
there,
think?
one last question: Are you a morning trainer or an evening trainer?
Evening trainer.
Ah,
Evening
subhanallah.
trainer?
Hands down evening, mate.
So like always after work.
Always after work.
Yeah.
I wish I could do morning because it's much more effective.
Yeah.
But hey, very hard. Nah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but no, that is the direction that we wanted to go. Sorry, Haji.
Yeah,
that's
wanted to
right.
get that
But-
out
No,
there.
we need to know the pros and cons here.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Haji, on the other hand, is a morning trainer because
I'm a
I
morning
remember
trainer,
from
yeah.
Haji's interview, Haji mentioned that you like taking walks.
Yeah, I do around about 8, 9, 10 Ks a morning.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
subhanallah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
just walking.
Yeah.
Walking. And alhamdulillah, it's hard to do, but as you know, you've got to get used to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've got to put the effort in.
Yeah.
Do you have a walking buddy, or you just?
Oh, yeah.
Or you
yeah.
sometimes-
I have different jinns come along with me every now and then. Yeah. So I'm talking to them on the way through,
That makes sense why the fundraisers are so successful.
Yeah. He's got help.
It's the genes meeting people, encouraging people when they grow up.
But now, it's someone's here. But now.
Come on. It's not about me today. It's all about Ali Kadri. Subhanallah, yeah.
But moving back to Haji Hassan's question of this is Ali in 2019. Ali, when he first moved to Australia.
Like there is I think I'll go back a little more than that. Yeah. Okay. So I grew up in India, Gujarat. India, as you know, got a massive Muslim population, second largest in the world. Some may argue third because Pakistan.
Yeah.
Pakistan's got about 200 million Muslims too. Grew up in western part of India, Gujarat, quite a well-known place, mostly for business. Very famous for Mahatma Gandhi,
Yes.
and unfortunately quite infamous now for Narendra Modi.
Yeah.
But a very happening place nonetheless.
Yeah.
Family has a very strong ties with politics in a sense that my great-grandfather fought in Indian independence movement.
Wow.
So I'm very close to Mahatma Gandhi's family.
Yeah.
It's, kind of till now, and I don't know I have spoken about it much or not, but if I'm stuck in making a decision in community work, I reach out to Tushar Gandhi, who's Mahatma Gandhi's great-grandson.
Yeah.
And he's been a mentor on a lot of things. Very good
Yeah.
man. And so did that, came to Australia in 2003 after the riots of 2002, anti-Muslim riots in Gujarat, where I lost a cousin
Wow.
to the riots. So I was 21, came to Australia and came to Sydney, Western Sydney. Lakemba was the place where I first sort of found accommodation as a young Muslim coming to Australia.
That's Haji Hassan's
yeah,
second neighborhood after Gold Coast.
Exactly, East Territory. I mean, they're going to name a street after him.
Yeah,
very soon.
I'm sure.
But came to Lakemba and I was studying Masters of Business. I did MBA. I was doing MBA at the
Mashallah.
time at Charles Sturt University, which was in Sydney.
Yeah.
So did that in Sydney, finished my MBA and came to Brisbane to do another Masters in accounting.
Wow.
So I came to Brisbane, got a job here, started studying Masters in Accounting, James Cook University, finished that degree, and then did a postgraduate qualification in international relations and politics. And that's mainly because of interest, Politics is a I have a keen interest in politics and history. So I did that at Griffith University. So a fair bit of education around there. And then the first time I kind of decided to do any community work was when I met Imam Uzair.
Oh, mashallah.
At Holland Park Mosque. So I met Imam Uzair and I said, Imam, this is who I am. I introduced myself. And I was having a discussion with him on the situation of the community. And he said, look, everybody can have an opinion.
Yeah.
But, what is more important is to go out and do things.
Something. Yeah.
And actually put your ideas into play.
Yeah.
And I did that. And at the time, Uncle Ismail Kaji was the president of the mosque. He was in the committee. So I joined the mosque committee. Uncle Nizam Deen. I came across, I think I met Uncle Hassan as well at the time. Quite a few senior community members who were given years and years to community work. And, I think they were all sort of dedicated community workers who have sacrificed so much for the community, and I continue to do so.
Yeah.
And as someone who, sort of thought that has something to give to the community, I thought, what, I'll learn from their example. And go down that path myself and give something back to the community, whatever I could in my capacity. So that's kind of where I got into community work.
Yeah.
Islamic Council of Queensland at the time was the peak organization, considered as a peak organization. So we engaged the stakeholders, went around state, and I still remember the first act to get the house in order was to drive from Brisbane to Mariba and stop at every single mosque on the way.
MashaAllah.
So myself and Uncle Ismail did that, right? And subhanAllah, what an exposure I had to the Muslim community. I mean, the admiration I have for the Muslim community from that is phenomenal, because it's easy to practice your religion. It's easy to show good character when you are around Muslims all the time in a Muslim country. But to be in regional Australia,
it's a lot different.
Yeah, exactly. And then hold fast to your religion.
Yeah.
For such a long period of time, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. See, and this is the thing as well. So here in Brisbane, we're attached to a lot of different mosques. In this area, there's 4 mosques around us. But the regional areas. So how would you suggest us to connect with them? And
Sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead. I think. Look, regional areas, the mosques there, the communities there are so small, and a lot of times they don't have resources which we have when it comes to, like, this studio is an amazing resource, community resource, and it's been put to very good use. The regional mosques, because they are so small, they don't have that kind of resource. So I think the best thing we could do for them is to make these resources available. For them to do whatever they could do. And as far as connection is concerned, look, alhamdulillah, nowadays with social media, WhatsApp, everything else, it's not hard to stay connected and talk to them. And I do know that Haji Has does a lot of fundraisings for a lot of regional mosques around the country.
Yeah.
And, we're trying to sort of develop regional centers, because as Australia grows and the regional cities in particular grow, there'll be a lot more Muslims coming in. And Muslims who've been here for a long time, or who are privileged and have resources in the big cities, it's incumbent on us to actually provide them support.
Yeah.
I mean, the population of Muslims in Queensland are always growing, number one. All the regional centres definitely need support.
Yeah.
Not just financially, but moral support from the major cities. And, what you did, Ali, is to travel the depth of the state needs to be done more often.
Yeah, 100%.
Because they need that hand to hang on to.
Yeah.
Being in regional Australia, it's not easy to keep your religion, as Ali said.
Yes, 100%.
And that's why they need that connection.
Ali, now, when you decided to get involved with doing community work, what advice could you give our youth that are potentially looking at getting involved as well? Like, what direction would you give them, or what ideas would you give them to say, listen, this is how you can make a difference or make an impact?
But not only that, when you came to that decision, what were you feeling inside?
Yeah.
When you went to go talk to Imam Uzair, like, what were you feeling? What did you feel needed to change as well?
I think, look, I mean, everybody can relate to what I'm going to say next, that after September 11, things have changed for Muslims, and especially in the Western countries, because things are not as smooth as they used to be in the past. And we are looking both internally and externally for those reasons. So for me, I felt that there are certain things we can do as a community, and there are certain things we can use as a communication tool with the external community or outside community to improve the social cohesion in the overall Muslim community. I mean, if you look at it, the contributions of the Muslims in this country is phenomenal. I mean, there are families who've been here for decades, and have been here for a long time, and they've done a lot of work in the community, but it's kind of not acknowledged or celebrated as it should be in the building of Australia. I mean, a country which is 200 years old, people acknowledge the contributions made by Europeans, people acknowledge the contribution made by the Italians, the Vietnamese, the Chinese, but Muslim contribution to Australia is not acknowledged and celebrated as much as it should be. And the reasons for that, I believe, could be both internal and external. We didn't sell ourselves. We sold ourselves short, I believe. And number two is that there is this fear of Muslims, because generally we are very different to Europeans. And we come from a diverse background. So if you look at Vietnamese or Chinese community, they are large number, they all speak same language, they are from one cultural group. If you look at a Muslim community, they're from various different cultural groups, who from outside may look similar, but internally have a lot of differences, but have similar interests when it comes to the community.
So Ali, so when you went to join a council, Holland Park Mosque, do you feel, and this is getting personal now.
Sure.
I've got to get personal here.
Sure, please.
Did you feel that you were accepted just within your own community, like say Holland Park, or, and then when you went to council, how did you feel? What was the reaction you feel from a general public? And can I use a few words? Being a new kid on the block.
Yes. I still get that after 7 years.
Yeah, that's right. I think once you get to 30 years, then you say, "Oh, I'm one of the boys now." But no. So be honest. This is a podcast. This is to inform people, because we can all learn. All of us can learn about new boys, new sisters on the block.
Look, I think it wasn't easy. Definitely not easy. The acceptance wasn't there readily available, but obviously I had acceptance and support from some senior members in the community, Imam Hussain in particular, Ismail Kaji, and quite other few people. But, again, that idea that who is this person? He's just come into Australia, he's got an accent, and he comes and he wants to lead us. I mean, where does he come from? Sort of thing, and that's very tough for a young person to come in and want to do something in the community and do something positive. It's very hard. But having said that, I could also understand that generally in Muslim community, there is this sense of insecurity and fear. When any new thing happens or any change is about to occur, we kind of get scared that this change, whether it's in the shape of a person or ideas, may not work and backfire and make our situation worse. So I can understand that kind of fear is also existent in the community. Now, my advice to everyone else is persevere. If you persevere in doing something, if you keep on doing what you think is the right thing to do with good niyyah, eventually things work out. Okay? So some of the most, prominent opponents I had in the beginning are now quite supportive of me in the community, and that's because they got to know me over time.
So do you believe that actions are louder than words?
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
And especially in our community?
Absolutely.
Right.
I think every community as such, but in particular in our community because, as I said earlier, that we come from different cultures, right? So we have slight nuances of differences in the way we do things. And sometimes, the people of different cultures may feel awkward, and that awkwardness is not properly discussed and communicated in a committee setting, and that puts off people from working with each other, right? So if we openly talk about it and acknowledge those differences and say, look, we have those cultural differences, but our goal, our aims are the same. And I say this to the wider community as well, not just the Muslim community. We are in this country together, right? Whatever is going to happen to this country, and communities are very key to any country's or any society's growth. Whatever is going to happen to this country is going to happen to the future of our children, the future of the children of our neighbors, no matter where they come from. So it's very important that we keep that goal in mind. And when we make decisions which are, which are futuristic in goals.
No, that's really important because, you growing up, because we're going to be older soon, we need to also understand that the new kids coming up as well. And how do we develop them? How do we establish, build them, give them the right leadership skills, and how do we support them?
Look, I think one thing is allowing people or giving them a platform always helps build that leadership quality, which is necessary. I've come a long way myself. I've learned from my mistakes because nobody is perfect. Everybody learns. And had I not...
Did you say nobody's perfect?
Yeah. Do I have to make exception for Haas? He's too close to me. I had to make an exception for him. Okay.
He is the man.
So, I think everybody makes mistakes. And allowing them a platform, allowing young people, upcoming people, a platform to sort of express their ideas, and when they do mistakes, not to reprimand them or use their mistakes to sort of as a learning curve is a way to go. Because look, we could do more. We could do with more and more people doing community work and taking leadership, and not just within Muslim community. I mean, within the wider community, it's time now in this country that Muslims come out and take leadership. Muslim Australians take leadership in various places, be it in government, be it in, a lot of other areas of government. So, you're talking about police, you're talking about army, you're talking about a lot of other things. Economical leadership. I mean, we have professionals working in big firms. Yeah. And I think as a community, we should all come together and say, look, we all have different skills. We need people with all sorts of skills, and we need people to take leadership in different areas.
Yeah. SubhanAllah, I was just thinking about something while you were saying this, and I guess also talking about, getting into your involvement in the community. We've had some communication, we've had some situations, SubhanAllah, that we've had to deal with. But I think it's sort of something you have to sometimes take on board. And I think you get this a lot where, your phone may be ringing hot on a particular situation or a particular instance. Do you feel sometimes that it can become overwhelming as well for you, as being the sort of the central point of contact when it comes to certain situations?
Yeah, well, look, it has in the past. It does, and depending on the situation, it is sometimes too hard to deal with. There has been instances where I may have rightly or wrongly made a decision to say something or do something in the context and with the information I had, and a good intention, I did something which probably didn't go well with a segment of a society or segment of the community, and then you get severe criticism sometimes, which is very hard because at the end of the day that you're doing this with the right intention. And you have a goal in mind, which is for the benefit of the Muslim community or the community in general, and then you get this criticism. And worst thing of that is that when you try to engage the individuals who are criticizing you, they pull back off you, right? They don't want to engage. But even with that, I found that, I won't go into the details of the experiences I've had, but I've had this one experience where I had a lot of criticism from a certain group of people. I persevered. I didn't break my relationship with them. I always spoke to them nicely and kindly when I saw them in public. And subhanAllah, those people now are good friends of mine. Yes. I do get phone calls from them every now and then.
So, Ali, one incident is in my mind. Remember the incident a couple of years ago at Darra?
Yes, with that
it came from
pastor.
Kadri to Darra was the pastor thing.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah, the Baptist pastor.
Yeah.
Last year.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us a story about that, because I love that story actually.
Yeah.
And that was one time that I could say that we had a spokesman at the right time, at the right place. And exerted his authority over the media, over all aspects of what happened that day.
Yeah. So look, there's
what led up to that. Something during the day was it? I can't remember.
Yeah, so he did show up to Karbi Mosque with a camera There were 2 or 3 people in the mosque at the time, and he started abusing people in the mosque. And, going into the mosque unannounced, I got a call, and I remember at that time I was with one of the imams who was getting harassed at the airport. So I was with him at the airport trying to sort of intervene and trying to improve his situation. And I get this call that, there's this guy at the mosque and he's trying to annoy people, he's being abusive, blah, blah. And first thing which came to my mind, I said, don't react. That's what he wants. Do not react. Do not be threatening, because that's what he will do. He will record you doing this and then go out and spread this anti-Islam sort of sentiments using that limited footage. So alhamdulillah, the brothers didn't. And by the time I went there, he was gone. And that was in Kadri Mosque, right? I saw the footage our brothers recorded, and I saw the person who he was. And they told me that he's made an appointment to go to Dara Mosque the next day.
Oh, subhanAllah.
Right, so he actually made an appointment to go to Dara Mosque the next day at 12:30. So I contacted the brothers in Dara and I said, look, this guy's coming. His intention is to, record this and show how bad Muslims are by provoking us and getting a response out of us. So, what I'll do is I will go and speak to him, speak to him. I don't want to confront him. I don't want to fight him. I just want to speak to him. And obviously, by that time, I was in the media spokesperson role for a long period of time. And one thing about media, they never miss a good story. Never miss a good story.
So did they know that? Because obviously they were there already, right? So did they get the tip-off that he was going to be there from him? Or did you guys say, listen, this guy's going to show up. Ali's going to show up as well. It's on. Let's do this.
So I called media. I called media that day. I called media because I wanted to expose him for what he was, right?
Exactly
He thought that he's going to come to the mosque, take a camera, provoke Muslims, and then defame us. I mean, we're not children, I mean, come on, seriously, this is, and this happens quite a lot with Muslims, unfortunately, that they try and provoke us and then use a limited, segment of what we say and to promote Islamophobia. So I thought that this is an opportunity to turn it around its head. And called the media that day, Dara Mosque, and alhamdulillah, he came there, and even to some media people, they were shocked.
Yeah,
they were shocked because here is the guy who is extreme to the core.
Yeah,
right. He's in the Muslim mosque. He's being abusive, and I think what happened was he came in with 2 or 3 small cameras, and there I was with 12 journalists with current affairs and a big, massive camera on his face, and he didn't know what to say, and he didn't know what to do, and he did exactly what he expected us to do. He reacted in aggressive manner, and that exposed him for what he was. But the most important thing which came out of this, and this is what we've got to keep in mind, there is a law in Australia where if somebody is not good for social cohesion and is on a visa, they are sent back.
Yeah,
right. And literally the government was wedged into sending him back because he was on a visa from New Zealand. He's a known extremist, but he flew under the radar because he wasn't Muslim, right? So he got away with a lot of aggressive sermons, which he used to do up in somewhere in Brisbane. He got away with it for a long time. But that media exposure exposed him to a point where minister intervened and cancelled his visa and sent him back.
Yeah.
So, that kind of was
so do you think happened. You think things have changed with government and policy now and law in the respects to supporting these types of elements of people?
Look, I mean, what happens...
And Christchurch in the mix, what happened there? So all those elements with redneck organisations?
I think there's one point I want to make, and just to continue it, I personally think there's still a long way to go.
Yeah.
Ali and I actually had a discussion about this not too long ago. We had a brother, I'm not going to mention any names, and he had some friends at the local gun shop because he's a hunter, so he enjoys hunting in his spare time. He's a Muslim hunter. And subhanAllah, he made some really good friends at the gun shop, and they was having a good chat and whatever, but unbeknown to him, there was someone in the gun shop that actually reported him to the authorities. By the time he got back to his business, the authorities were there ready to question him on what he was doing at the gun shop. So this is reality for a Muslim, obviously. Ali and I had another situation. We're not going to go into the details of that situation, but the wheels do turn a lot slower when it's not a Muslim, I feel. When it's someone of a completely different background.
Right.
So yeah.
I think
What
there
do you
is.
think, Ali?
I'll do one better. Just last week, I got a call from Hamza Robbie about a young child who's come to Australia from Syria the last 2 years. Muhammad is his name, and he was drawing a Syrian flag, in the school.
Yeah.
The kids do, and subhanallah, the principal of the school reported the kid to National Security Hotline, and lo and behold, some QPS officers visited his house.
Allah.
And they were like, oh, we just went for a casual visit. But my argument to QPS has always been this, and I've said this on national TV, I'll say it here, that, nobody expects QPS officers, especially from the counter-terrorism team, to come to their house to have a coffee.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah, it's a very scary thing for most people. You don't just...
How old was the boy?
17. So he's a young boy, and today I'm going to actually about to deal with that issue. I'm going to raise that up as high up as I can.
Yeah.
Because what is happening is, look, I mean, from that principal's point of view, I think that's mostly the lack of understanding or knowledge of what Muslims are, what Islam is, what different culture is. So a little bit of cultural awareness will go a long way when it comes to that principle, right? He's an individual. When it comes to an organization like QPS, they have a lot more power, and hence they have to act and behave a lot more responsibly than a civilian. Okay? And I think that is lacking for a long period of time. And why they have got away with it for such a long time with such behavior is, and I'll be very honest with you, is because, the cultural engagement they do most of the times is a box-ticking exercise, in my opinion. I mean, at the end of the day, they do what they want to do. And what they have always done, another thing, I think it's a lesson for all Muslims, I have learned it myself, is that if they don't like a particular Muslim leader, and they do it to other communities as well, not just Muslim community, they don't like particular community organization criticizing, they go to some other organization to tick a box and take a photo and say, look, we have done a cultural engagement. Yeah. Okay? So that happens. And to avoid that, what we have to do is we have to have a strong channel of communication within the community. So, we cannot be sort of from outside, somebody comes in and says, okay, I don't like what this guy is saying. Guess what? I'm going to go and take a photo in that mosque.
Yes.
And next day, that mosque is saying something which is critical of me. I'll go to that mosque and take a photo. So they do that to get away with it, right? And I think if we keep all the Muslim community organizations informed, then we can avoid being victim of that kind of politics.
Ali, do you think, of course, they went to speak to the 17-year-old family. Do you think that, over the last, say, 15 years, probably 12 to 15 years, that, of course, we've had some bad elements, so-called our brothers and sisters, or maybe brothers, maybe. Do you think that's put a lot of heat on the Muslim community, especially the youth, because of, incidents that have happened, irrespective has got connected with Islam or not? Do you think that you understand where I'm coming from?
I know where you're coming from, and I think I'll be honest with you. I have always been of an opinion that we should be the first ones to criticize someone who does something wrong in the name of Islam. We should be the first one to do so. Our religion teaches us this, right? Our religion says that stand against the oppressor, no matter who that person is. So, doing such activities, be it terrorism, crime, violence, drugs, is an oppression. Yeah. And we have to stand against that kind of oppression and speak out against that oppression. So we're the first ones who should do this. And yes, that brings attention to us. Yes, that brings heat to us. But at the same time, evil is in every community. So we have elements within each community, in every community, no matter where they come from, who do criminal activity, and from time to time terrorism. So, Brendan Tarrant, for example, was a white terrorist who was of a Caucasian background from a regional town, New South Wales, right? That doesn't mean that all Australians are terrorists. That doesn't mean everybody in that town is an extremist. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that if a young child from that town draws an Australian flag, he or she needs to be questioned or spoken to. Because what that does is then that puts a bullseye on the whole community.
Yeah.
Okay? And it paints the whole community with the same picture. And it's not a good strategy as well if you want to create social cohesion and safe society, because what that does is that makes a large section of community alienated, and there may be people within that community who may then buy propaganda from extremist groups or whatever it is and do silly things. So it's not a good strategy all the way around. So while I acknowledge and agree that yes, things have been done by people who, in the name of Islam, which is wrong, we have always spoken out very strongly against it. I've heard you speak out against it. I've spoken out against it. I've heard a lot of Muslim leaders around the country speak out against it.
Yeah.
So we've done our best to address those issues, but we're not given the credit for it. Not only that, we are all looked upon as suspects by people in very powerful positions.
Yeah.
And then we are used as political pawns by some to score political points.
Yeah.
And that has to stop. That is more dangerous than anything else.
So do you believe that, within the Muslim community now, are we communicating enough at different levels within our own community, either be from societies, the Islamic Council and other organisations? Are we talking enough? Are we talking enough to understand our communities, to see if there's, in other words, stop an incident before it happens? To me, I don't think we are.
I think, look, I mean, in my opinion, and you would know this more because you have much more experience than I do in the community work, but in the last 7 years, I've seen that now we have a strong Islamic Council with good engagement with all the societies, a lot more engagement than it used to be in the past, okay, number one. Number two, that we have platforms like this to communicate with each other. And then, obviously you were part of something over the weekend nationally, which unfortunately I couldn't make it. But there are efforts being made to bring everybody together. And first thing in solving any problem is to acknowledge that we have a problem, right?
Yeah.
And there is a widespread acknowledgement across the community that we need strong communication within the community. We need centralized organizations which can represent the Muslim community and majority and mainstream view of the Muslim community. We have that acknowledgement. There are people working tirelessly in achieving that. And I guess, this is something I have used in my personal life. Every time I get disappointed, I remind myself that, whenever I do something, the goal is not in my hands. The goal is in the hands of Allah, right?
Yeah.
I have only my efforts. So if I don't achieve a goal, I will not get disappointed. I will do my efforts. And then I will know that this goal wasn't meant to be. And Allah doesn't want this to happen at this point in time. So it didn't happen. So I keep on doing what I need to do. And, you traveled over the weekend to Sydney to participate in something which is endeavoring to create this communication nationally. And I think, that's a good start. I think that's...
No, alhamdulillah. Like you said, there's good work happening behind the scenes. It's maybe not in public all the time. But inshallah, it will eventuate to come to public, meaning different organisations will be connected to this organisation when there's big decisions have to be made, inshallah.
And one thing I'd like to say, look, to all Muslims, remain positive. Hopelessness is haram.
Yeah.
We are in a very good country.
Yeah,
okay?
100%.
We are in very, alhamdulillah, despite all its problem, we are in a very good country. We are privileged than most Muslims and non-Muslims in the world. We are very privileged. We have a good community, alhamdulillah, good health, good wealth. Yes, we have problems, and everybody does. But hopelessness is not part of our religion.
Yeah.
The life wasn't meant to be easy. Life wasn't meant to be easy. And alhamdulillah, we have a very easy life. Yeah. And inshallah, if we keep to our religion and die as Muslims, we will have a reward after here as well. So, I think let's be hopeful and use that positivity to go out and get people together. And I think positivity sometimes breeds positivity.
So Ali, you spoke about Australia being a great country, which is, of course, we love Australia, mashallah.
But not only that, the Islam in Australia is growing, and for us living in the capital cities, it's amazing. I travel 5 minutes and I'm at my local masjid, and that's something that's helped me grow as a Muslim. Now, when you first came to Australia as a Muslim, what was it like? Has it changed?
look, I came to Lakemba, so
I didn't leave home.
I came to Australia, and now I look back and laugh at it. But I came to Australia, and the first week I was like, "Where are the old Australians?" You know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm in Australia, or am I somewhere else in the Middle East? But the that's kind of what.
Welcome to Lebanon.
Exactly. I was
But the amazing thing about Lakemba as well is, and I've walked up that street, you can have an Islamic bookstore.
Holden Street.
And then a few doors down,
Pub.
you've got a pub.
Yeah.
You've got a bottle shop. We've still coexisted to a
the
degree.
funny thing is that I knew the owner of that pub, right?
Yeah.
It was a white guy whose family's owned that pub for years.
Yeah.
And he got so accustomed to the Lebanese people who were living there that he spoke like them.
Yeah.
Right? He had that sort of, Western Sydney accent.
Yeah.
And he ran a pub out of there. And all his friends were Lebanese. And he must have grown up with them, in that area and stuff. And he knew so much about Islam.
Yeah.
So he knew that,
I hope some of his customers went Lebanese. Sorry, brothers.
He did sell Coke Zero, or Coca-Cola, as he said at the time. But, he had that as well. But coming back to the question, I guess things have things are good. Yeah. But what is more important instead of just besides the numbers of Muslims is that there has to be an acknowledgement that Islam is one of Australia's religions. It's not a foreign religion.
No. Yeah.
It's a religion followed by Australians. Just like Christianity is a religion followed by Australians. Judaism is a religion followed by Australians, and there are a lot of Australians who are atheists, right? Yeah. So we have to acknowledge that there are Muslims who are Australians. And Islam is part of this country and the fabric of this country. Yeah. Not the only part of this country. Yeah. Not the only fabric of this country. The other thing, and you may disagree with me on this, and I'm happy to sort of be criticized because build a thick skin being a spokesperson for a long time.
Here comes Haji.
Haji just came out here.
I know he's getting ready. He's getting ready. I can see him rolling his sleeves. But look, I think we have to now acknowledge that we will, if not already, build a unique Australian Muslim culture.
Yeah.
Okay. There will be Australian Muslim culture. There is an Indian Muslim culture. There's a Lebanese Muslim culture. There's African Muslim culture. And within Africa, there's different countries with different cultures. There will be uniquely Australian Muslim culture.
Yeah.
And we have to acknowledge that ourselves, that, we Australians, we will, if not already, form a culture or be part of the culture of this country. And we'll adopt certain things which are in line with our religion.
Yes.
And then, we will change a little. We will change the country a little. And all of us together will grow into this. And I think that needs to be spoken out more. And every community which has come here has done so. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you guys agree with me, but that's kind of what I feel.
Well, I don't know that I don't agree. I mean, we're Australian first.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, Muslims, of course. Yes. Alhamdulillah. And then at the end of the day, I don't think the word culture is the word, but it's more of a, what's the word? We're more of, we have integrated.
Yeah.
Muslims came here over 150 years ago, from Indonesia, right? Yeah. And some of their culture stayed here, and then of course we have probably over maybe 100 different nationalities of Muslims here. I know there's 60 different Muslims nationalities at the Gold Coast. So all that nationality with Islam together with the Australian culture gives a good mix.
Yeah. There's one thing I want to bring in though, that with a little bit of traveling that I did do, I went to Turkey, and I can say our kebabs are definitely a lot bigger than the Turkish kebabs.
Look,
I think we've got something unique there, because if you talk about an Australian kebab versus a kebab anywhere else,
but culture is made out of a lot of things. Food is one. Language is another. Dressing is another. I mean, like if you grow up in Queensland, for example, or if you have been in Queensland for a long period of time, you're much more comfortable wearing 3/4 and thongs.
Yes.
Than a lot of people who grew up in other countries. So, I remember I've been here now 18, 19 years. And if I do go to India, there's still not that culture of wearing 3/4 pants and thongs when you go out. I feel comfortable doing it, right? And then when I think about myself, why do I feel comfortable doing it? Because day in, day out, I see this here and I feel normal doing it here. So culturally, in my dressing, I have changed.
True.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's one aspect. The other aspect is I grew up in India, and when I was growing up there, you know, I haven't eaten till water starts coming out of my nose and eyes because of the chili. And man, I can't handle spice anymore. And thanks to Lakemba, living in Lakemba for the first 3 years, kibbeniyya and like uncooked meat and all that from Lebanese, and then coming to Queensland and you know, I don't know, burgers at the mosque. I mean, seriously, tell me, any mosque in the world where they'll be selling burgers or chips, chicken and chips. Like you don't have mosques where they sell chicken and chips. You know, that, like if you do that in a mosque anywhere in the Muslim world, people be looking at your face, are you trying to feed me chicken and chips after Juma Salah? I mean, come, what are you doing, man? And that's kind of part of the culture as well. That's what we do. But that's part of our culture too now.
And that touches on the point, going back to the pub owner in Lakemba, you know, he was engaged with the culture around him, and he learnt more. But not only that, you know, there's a lot of Australian-born Muslims that are living here in Australia. And again, this goes to show, you know, back at ICB, the Family Fun Day with Farrah Scott, it was a beautiful event, by the way.
Very great.
You know, we had a huge lineup because people, they love burgers. You know what I mean? Like these are Australian Muslims. You know, they love Australian food. They're entwined with the culture now as well. Like their kids, they're Australian born. Their kids are Australian born. So Islam in Australia it's for me, it's a beautiful thing.
Oh,
yeah, I really like it.
And the availability of halal food here.
Yes.
I mean, I've traveled to Canada, North America, UK. Halal food we get here. I mean, subhanAllah, I got a bone broth protein which is halal. You know what I mean? Seriously. Like it's great. It's good. We have, alhamdulillah, good life here. More importantly though, and I keep on coming back to this, then at first we have to acknowledge and accept that, you know, this is our country. And, you know, we form a part of a culture and a story of a young country. And inshallah, going forward, we'll take leadership and contribute to this country as we have done in the past, a lot more relevant to what our numbers are now.
Brother Ali, take us to. I know you're doing amazing work on the community side. From a leadership point of view, what do you do for business, and what is your day-to-day business activity look like? What do you do for work?
So look, business, I for a long period of time had a very successful training organization.
MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah, for a long period of time. I did that for, I guess I started in business, you know. I had a job for a little while, and then I started education business. And alhamdulillah, I was quite successful.
What they call it, RTO.
Yeah, RTO, Registered Training Organization. About 11 years I ran an organization, training organization. At the moment, I am working on one of the startups, and I have an established business which is into software. So I developed a software. Being an Indian, it's a cliche, but I developed a software which is a software as a service for business.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I provide that to other training organizations.
Oh, mashallah.
And alhamdulillah, the business launched, and it's
like a VitTrack or something. Sorry, I'm showing my little bit of RTO knowledge is coming out.
So it's more of like Cloud Assess.
Okay.
So it's a better version of Cloud Assess, where I do online learning and assessment through my platform. So the training organizations are using my platform to go online. And I'm talking to some schools and universities to sort of use the software to go online. It's much better than Blackboard.
Wow.
Because it took me about 3.5 years to develop the software. I
Mashallah.
didn't code it myself, but obviously I wrote the logic of it.
In the background.
And the analysis, the business analysis side of the project. And it has, to give you an idea, about 9 million lines of code. So it's a massive software.
It's huge.
It's massive software. And that's one. Other thing, I was in China recently trying to work on a startup exporting food into China from Australia.
mashallah.
Yeah, because I believe Australia's got a potential to feed the world, especially China.
That's another point I was going to get into as well. I'm sort of digressing slightly. But yeah, when you guys were talking about food, subhanAllah, when I was in the UAE, I went into one of their like Huli stores, whatever you want to call it, or Coles, to give them both a bit of advertising. And subhanAllah, I think I took photos of all the Australian products on the shelf. And I'm not lying to you guys, I reckon 20 to 25% of the products on the shelf, talking meat, cheese, the works, were from Australia.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So for a small country, like, I felt so proud thinking, you know, that as a small country of what, at the time, probably only 25 million people, that, subhanAllah, our products are all the way over here, you know, in the UAE.
And that's, again, going back to that point I made, leadership in business by the Muslim communities and the diverse Muslim community is so important for Australia's future. Because, look, it is much easier for a Muslim of a Middle Eastern or Muslim of an African background to go back to Africa and sell Australian goods to Africans, right?
Yes.
It's easier for Chinese to do the same. It's easier for Indians to do the same. I mean, you go all around the world. We produce so much food here.
Yeah.
Our wool is one of the best of the qualities, right? Our honey is good. You know, our wheat we produce is good, and the farmers. I mean, look at let's you know, if you go around and think about this, a farmer in Rockhampton, a meat works in Rockhampton, which probably would not know much about Muslims or Islam, is willing to make their food halal. Yes, for money, but you know, they are selling halal meat out of Rockhampton to the Muslim countries around the world. In itself is a testimony of you know, what the
billion Muslims in the world, most of them want to eat halal, alhamdulillah. And of course, at the end of the day, you know, some of that's going to come from Australia. You know,
a lot of it comes from here, you know, alhamdulillah. And I think for us, I mean, if we take leadership in that area as Muslims, in business or in anything else, then, you know, what we are doing is we are showing the rest of Australia that, you know, what our true value is. And for those who, you know, sit down and look at us as a burden on society, will then know that, you know, we contribute a lot more to this society as migrants.
Well, when we get these dummies that jump up and down when they talk about halal, with all due respect, you know, they have no brains at all. They're not looking at the bigger picture where Australia can survive by selling halal around the world. I mean, you know, we went through that stage, as you know yourself. You know, the Pauline Hansers and the Annings that talk about halal and all that sort of stuff. You know, when they have no comprehension on what that would do to Australia if they stopped it all.
I guess, and the economy as well.
You know.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, just the fact that we were talking about it just before we started. You know, a lot of infrastructure growth is required in Australia. We have water issues north. And I think population growth is necessary for the growth of Australia. I mean, if you look at the history of Australia, gold rush wouldn't be what it is if they didn't get migrants. If the migrants didn't come to this country and dig out the gold will still be under the ground. If the migrants or the Cameliers didn't come and put up the telegraph line, Australia will be at least 20, 30 years late in communicating with the rest of the world. And these things have sped up so much of Australia's growth in such a short period of time. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but in last century, you know, working hour for a factory worker in Victoria was 8 hours. At the same time in UK, the factory workers were working 16-hour shifts. Right? So this country was considered a country of wealth. You know, so imagine that 8-hour work day in Australia, in Victoria, which is a colony of UK at the time, 16 hours work day in UK, in London.
Oh man, I'm still doing 16 hours now.
16 hours of what?
I'm going to leave the country.
16 hours of what? Work?
Well, you know, there's an old saying out west, working.
So, you know, like, and this is what Australia has been always, and it has a potential to again do so, inshallah, and keep on doing it in the future. And then, you know, we share that burden because of our growth with our privilege. We have a responsibility to look after the people in the rest of the world who are not as privileged as we are. And, you know, drink one coffee less and donate for it, which I think Muslim community does a great job at it, a great job.
Well, you know, we saw on the weekend what the Muslims have done.
Yeah, subhanAllah. That was
you know, Stanthorpe,
phenomenal,
Stanthorpe was running out of water. And mashallah, through Muslim Aid, and I think the Dean family, was it?
Yes.
And
10 trucks,
MCF, 10 truck semi-trailer loads of water. You know, what a great effort, mashallah. So this is great that we can publicise this and show the wider community that the Muslims people are actually doing something.
Absolutely.
You know, and we need to do this more. You know, we know the left hand, the right hand shouldn't show it, but I think in these days and this day and age that we need to show the wider public more so what we're doing.
And again, sorry, just to come in to our listeners, this is again the reason why we had started this podcast is to also to highlight, you know, the Muslim individuals within the community that are doing such a good job for the Muslim community, but also for Australians as well. Because ultimately, you know, we all have a shared goal, and that is to live in Australia, to help Australia strive, and to create a future for all of our children.
Absolutely.
Whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim.
Amen.
So, yeah.
No, you're right.
Sorry.
You're right. I mean, it's something which needs to be talked about more often, and the contributions made by Muslim community should be spoken about and acknowledged and respected. And I think, you know, in Queensland we do a good job of engaging with the wider community, much better than New South Wales, I believe. Although New South Wales got a significant amount of Muslim population, I think we do a great job here.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah, we I think we're doing our part. Can we punch above the belt? I think we can do more.
Yes.
I think, you know, always funding for programs and funding for different activities is always difficult. But you are right, Ali. If we continue to support the underdog, if we continue to present Islam in the right way, like our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has done, then inshallah, like the water dripping on the rock, it will crack, and then mashallah, there'll be more interaction. It's not just them and us; it's us together. It's we. It's we.
Oh yeah, I just want to bring in another powerful point as well. Inshallah, is that the after obviously the Christchurch, and there were a few events that we had after that, memorial services and or services and so on. The one in particular I attended, I actually took my kids with me to the one at ICB, the one that that was the
ICQ.
Well, the ICQ had put on. And subhanAllah, it was a really, I'm thinking about it and I'm still getting a bit emotional because I had my 3 kids sitting next to me, and I didn't know if they were going to comprehend what had happened, because they had comprehended the event that this was a really bad thing that happened. But subhanAllah, on the day, I just remember having like a tear dripping down my eyes as the service was going on and everyone was doing their speeches and so on. But I looked over at the kids, and subhanAllah, they were all crying as well, because I think they realized, you know, that this really, really bad thing has happened, you know, but at least there's people out there that are now willing to make a change. If you can just build on that event, on that day, subhanAllah, I think it was so powerful to, you know, get the community together, because it was an event that got the wider community together as well.
And I think, you know, personally speaking, I haven't spoken about this too much, but I at that point in time, I was on an out. So I thought, you know, I've done my 5-6 years in the community. I need to take a break. I was out, and Christchurch happens.
Yeah.
And I was there on the day helping organize the event, and the emotion there, and most importantly, the number of people who turned up.
Yeah.
Man, the number of non-Muslims who turned up to that event. And then we had people putting out flowers at the mosques. And one of the contentious opinions I've had in the past, which I always challenged, which I got challenged for, mainly from Sydney, was that, you know, whenever a terrorist incident took place in the past and a Muslim was a perpetrator, I used to come and condemn it. And there was opinion that we shouldn't be so forthright and come and condemn it. Of course we condemn it. It goes without saying. We shouldn't say sorry, otherwise we're taking responsibility, blah, blah, blah. But Christchurch happens. And subhanAllah, we have in every single mosque, right, letters and flowers and postcards saying sorry. A 7-year-old kid coming out and saying, we're sorry this happened to you. So, you know, my now in hindsight, I don't want to sort of say that, you know, I was right, but what I want to say is that, look, you know, saying sorry sometimes to someone doesn't mean that you're taking responsibility. It just means that you are sorry for their loss. And the fact that, you know, there's so many people came, said sorry to us, made it a little bit easier to take that event, which was so hard on so many people.
Oh, yes.
And you know, it softened our hearts. Our hearts. But this is something which I guess is a great testament to the community in Australia, that, overwhelming majority of the people were willing to give up their Sunday in such a short notice, come to that day, come to that event, and everybody was crying to a point where people couldn't get into the hall.
Yes.
And they were sitting in the car park watching it on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
And alhamdulillah, from that, I think after that event, we've got some good new young leaders, male and female, who are doing great job in the community. And, I think no matter how tragic and sad that event was, I think community has come out stronger from it. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. I think, I don't know if you want to add something to it, but...
No. Look, as you said, that was a very sad time for the Muslim community around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50 or so people being killed, slaughtered, by a terrorist, as Ali said earlier. And sometimes they just look at terrorists as Muslims, but in this case, there was a non-Muslim, And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give all those brothers and sisters that passed away Jannah inshallah. I was in Christchurch about a month ago. I went to a function there.
Yeah.
And subhanAllah, I went to that mosque. MashaAllah, only small, maybe only fit about 220 people. But you can understand the heartache and the suffering that happened there on that day.
Yeah.
Why they couldn't do something with him, why they couldn't attack him. There was very limited space. And, it's you have to really go there to feel it. But, yeah, I mean, I thought I'd never get there, but I went there, alhamdulillah. I was invited there. But, the people have settled down there, but still there is elements of, you can still see the heartache still. You can still see it, you can feel it, because it's not something you can get over. I think when they do a 12-month anniversary or something of it, I think that'll be probably a pretty sad day and maybe some closure after that. But, now we are getting the same thing now in Kashmir, your own country.
Yeah. This is my
How does it feel? How does it feel to see that now we may see another tragic situation, or is it happening now, Ali?
Look, I think, all over the world, and especially there are a lot of places in the world where minorities, especially Muslims, are being oppressed. And this is true oppression. Palestine's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
Kashmir, China, there's a lot of other places where things are happening and unjust things are happening to people. Kashmir, there's not a lot coming out of it. But what I feel sad about is that for so long, Kashmir has been a tool of politics, and a proxy war has been fought over the land at the expense of Kashmiri people. Right? And I grew up in India, and I lost family there to Hindu extremists. And one thing I say to people, and to all the people in subcontinent and around the world, Syria before the war had 22 million people. Okay, a civil war caused about 17 million people to go homeless. Okay, so they lost internally and externally displaced people were 17 million. 4 million externally displaced, so they had to go out of the country. About 600,000 dead. This happened in 4-year war, civil war, in a country of 22 million people. Allah forbids that happens in a subcontinent of 1.5 billion people.
Wow.
So you're talking about India with a 1.1 billion population, Pakistan with 200 million, Bangladesh with 150 million, and China next door 1.25 billion. So, Allah forbids if something happens there, if there's internal, war or issue, the catastrophe which is going to strike the humanity. And I'm saying humanity because, look, Syria caused the worst refugee crisis Europe has seen since Second World War, right? And the whole world's still trying to cope with it.
Yeah.
So my statement to anyone, okay, and I engage, as you guys know, I engage with anyone who has got whatever opinion they have. So I talk to some people who are, for lack of a better word, Hindu nationalists and Hindu extremists. I tell them, listen, what is at stake here? You might take Kashmir by force, but then you're going to burn the subcontinent and everybody's going to lose out. The whole world will lose out.
Yeah.
And people here who don't know about the situation in subcontinent need to know that, it is our responsibility. Yes, it's happening there, but it is our responsibility because the world will have to face the fallout. Yeah. 1947 partition happened between India and Pakistan. 6 months, 1 million people killed.
SubhanAllah.
Right? And this was so long ago This was in 1947 when the world population wasn't 7 billion, when the subcontinent's population wasn't 1.5
So,
billion.
Ali, can you tell any of the listeners any update? Have you heard anything? Like, because there's a media blockout.
Yeah, there's a communication ban. There are sporadic protests. So there is protest there. But look, I think a lot of people also don't know what happened there initially and why this issue is so contentious. So very quickly, I'll just go into the history of what has happened there in Kashmir. So when India and Pakistan separated, when the partition took place, the agreement was that the majority Hindu provinces are going to be India, majority Muslim provinces are going to be Pakistan. That was the rule under which subcontinent was divided, right? Now, while there was India and Pakistan, under British rule, there were also kings who were sovereigns of different small states. Okay, now some of these states had Hindu majority and a Muslim king. Okay, and some of these states had Muslim majority and a Hindu king.
Wow.
Okay, so that was the situation of subcontinent. People think that India was this one big country under the British rule. It wasn't.
Yeah.
There was India. There was Pakistan, and there was 166 kingdoms.
Wow.
Okay, so that was the subcontinent at the time. Kashmir had a Hindu king and a Muslim majority. Okay, so that was the situation in Kashmir at the time. The king's name was Hari Singh. Now, Pakistan, when it was formed, and India, when it was formed, what they started to do was they started to take over small kingdoms. Okay, so they started to incorporate them into their country.
Land grab.
Exactly. So they did that. India, Pakistan both did it, right? So they took small lands and they made the country bigger and bigger. Kashmir was then invaded by Pakistan. So Pakistan went in and took an army into Kashmir. Hari Singh came to India for support. India said, we will only support you if you join us as a country. He said, okay, I will join you, but under terms. And those terms were that Article 370 of Indian Constitution, which says that Kashmir is a sovereign part in itself, is a sovereign country, and it's going to be loosely affiliated to India with certain rules. So basically, an Indian citizen cannot buy land in Kashmir. Okay, an Indian citizen cannot vote in Kashmir. Kashmir will have its own prime minister, own flag, own anthem, own police force. Only thing controlled by India will be Kashmir's foreign policy. Okay? And that was the decision. And then the ceasefire happened between India and Pakistan, where Pakistan kept part of Kashmir, India kept part of Kashmir, and a little bit of part was LOC, line of control, in the middle. Now, India and Pakistan fought 2 wars since then on that particular region. Okay, there was an agreement between India and Pakistan where people of Kashmir were to be given a right to vote a referendum, and whoever they wanted to go with, they would go with him.
Yeah.
Okay, so go with Pakistan, be independent country, or go with India. The referendum never took place. India instead sent 1 million soldiers, most militarized place in earth. And I think both India and Pakistan has failed Kashmir and Kashmiri people. And India could have been much better off if they didn't use the military force and instead grew the people of Kashmir and helped them grow. They would have happily joined India. I mean, that's what they would have done. But instead, India chose a wrong path. And it's a dangerous territory for the world. It's dangerous for the subcontinent. It's dangerous for humanity. That's a bit of a history.
You gave us the history, Ali.
Sorry, man. That's what I...
You're right onto it, mate.
Yeah, history is my thing.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
alhamdulillah.
No,
A
that was
learned
awesome.
man. Alhamdulillah. So basically, before we end off, you
Yeah.
know, one thing that I want to know, and we probably covered it through this conversation, but, you know, what keeps Ali Kadri striving and doing what he does?
Man, look, it's up and down. Like always, you know, you think about
Yeah.
your purpose in life and why you do what you do. You know, I think every human being has to have a goal. What's the purpose of life?
Yeah.
You know, is it to live life thinking about yourself and die one day? You know, obviously serving Allah goes without question. I mean, obeying Allah and doing your own things religiously, it goes without question. But I think, you know, making a slight change for better in the world is something everybody should strive for.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do. If I can make a little bit of change, positive change in the world, a little bit, not much, okay, within my capacity, then I think I would have lived a life, a proper life, a good life. Because otherwise, why do you get up? Why do you do whatever you do? Why do you work? Why do you do anything?
Yeah.
I mean, like you could just stay at home and do nothing.
Yeah.
And during that time, you do question a lot of things, especially when you have made mistakes, when you face hardships, and everybody does, you question why you do what you do. But I just keep on reminding myself that no matter what, I think ultimately Allah is the judge.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I have a good intention on what I want to do, and my intention is to make a positive change in the society, in the community. And one thing I end up with is in 2002 when the riots happened in Gujarat, this was about 17 years ago now, I remember that my father was seen as somebody who people went to when they were in trouble, Muslim community. I mean, he hosted a camp of 17,000 families who were displaced on the riots. And subhanAllah, my dad died, Allah yarhamu, in 2005. But till today, when I go to India, people say that, we wish he was alive when they have a problem. Right? So they went to him when they had an issue, and he always helped them. So that in itself is a huge sawab area, And I think that's something I would want to do, is make people's life better, even a little bit. And I think I can do it here in whatever means I can do it with: business, politics, community work. And that's what keeps me going.
Alhamdulillah.
Can you lend me some Ali?
Hey?
Can you lend me some money? Make my life better.
I think I should have been asking this question to him instead of.
You want to make my life better?
Alhamdulillah.
I think I've got one more question just to wrap up.
Yeah,
I actually
please.
do have one more.
Yeah, please.
How did this whole troll slayer thing come about? Because I mentioned it to Adrian. Did you even look it up, Adrian?
I did look at it. I was like, troll slayer. I thought that was hilarious.
That was bad acting, though.
Oh, mate, I didn't buy the acting. I just thought, alhamdulillah, shukran for that,
No worries, brother.
that
Thank
story.
you,
That was
thank you.
awesome.
No, Jazakallah khair for coming in today. We're all better for it.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you in the studio. Inshallah, one day you'll be able to join us on the host. Because we're trying to change it all around, Haji.
Oh, I got the sack.
I haven't got the sack yet, Haji.
Look, nobody can ask questions like this man. Trust me, you want him there
Exactly.
forever.
100%. 100%. SubhanAllah.
And
It's
look.
like having Yoda on the team, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the experience of
Exactly
the Jedi.
right,
The most
100%.
experienced Jedi.
Yeah, exactly right.
Subhanallah.
Jazakallah khair. Our podcasts are available on all your favorite platforms. So that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and of course, Facebook. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.